Hello and welcome. Put up a chair and make yourself comfortable. If you're anything like me, you have probably spent a fair portion of your life looking for the secret hack. You might have looked for the ultimate productivity app, or perhaps the one hidden trick that is finally going to sort everything out. We look for external methods. We buy the planners. We download the apps. We tinker with our daily schedules down to the minute. But after a certain point in life, you start to realize something rather humbling. Most of the friction in our lives is not actually coming from a lack of systems. It is coming from the noise sitting right between your ears. We live in a culture that loves to sell us methods. If you have a problem, buy a system. If you feel stuck, adopt a new framework. But thinkers like J. Krishnamurti often pointed out a deeper truth. Leaning on external systems and imposed methods only keeps us mentally handcuffed. True clarity does not arrive because you followed a rigid blueprint handed down by someone else. It arrives when you begin to look honestly at the contents of your own mind. Today, we are talking about why fixing your mindset is not just a nice idea for a Sunday afternoon. It is the foundational bedrock of everything that you want to achieve. And more importantly, we're going to look at how you cut through the absolute garbage of modern distraction so you can finally hear your own thoughts. Part 1. Mechanics versus gardeners of ourselves. Let us start with a simple metaphor. When it comes to personal change, most of us try to act like mechanics. Think about it. A mechanic approaches a machine with a wrench. They bring a diagnostic tool and a very specific manual. If a part is broken, you take it out. You replace it. You force it to work the way that it's supposed to. We treat our minds in exactly the same way. We look at a bad habit or a bout of anxiety and we think, right, I just need to tighten this bolt. I need to suppress that emotion. I need to hammer myself into shape. But human beings are not machines. We are closer to gardens. If you want a garden to flourish, you cannot simply bully the soil into producing tomatoes with a pair of pliers. You have to understand the environment. You have to look at the lights. You have to look at the weather, the weeds, and the soil quality. You have to be flexible. And of course, you have to be patient. You must be willing to adapt your approach as the seasons change. When your mindset is cluttered with social media outrage, endless notifications, and the frantic need for more constant validation, your internal garden is essentially choked out by weeds. You are trying to grow a meaningful life in a patch of ground that is completely overrun by digital debris. So, how do we shift from being harsh mechanics of our own minds to attentive gardeners? It starts by acknowledging a quiet truth. Suppression does not work. Whenever you try to force a negative emotion away, you are just burying a seed, and that seed will eventually sprout into something far more difficult to manage. Instead of fighting your mind, you have to start observing it. Part 2. The trap of constant pursuit. Let us talk about what we are actually chasing. If you look closely at the modern self-improvement landscape, it often operates on a rather frantic premise. The underlying message is usually that you are fundamentally broken. The promise is simple. If you just buy enough books, work out hard enough, and earn enough money, you will finally earn the right to feel peaceful. It's an exhausting way to live. It is like running on a treadmill. The treadmill accelerates every time you pick up the pace. You reach a goal. You feel a brief flash of relief. Then your brain immediately starts worrying about the next hill to climb. And why do we do this? Because facing our immediate reality is uncomfortable. It is much easier to stay busy. It is much easier to consume content. It is easier to chase achievements and lose yourself in external goals than it is to sit quietly in a room for 10 minutes. It is hard to ask yourself what you are actually running from. As the great traditions of self-inquiry remind us, the primitive mind acts purely on desire. It lurches from one pleasure to the next. It tries desperately to avoid any form of discomfort. But an intelligent person understands the implications of that desire. You start to notice a pattern. Every time you chase an external fix to fill an internal void, you are just reinforcing the idea that you are lacking something. Real personal development does not begin with adding more things to your plate. It begins with subtraction. It begins with cutting the noise. Part 3. Practical clarity through immediate awareness. Let us bring this down to earth with a practical example. Imagine you find yourself in a heated discussion. Maybe it's with a colleague or family member. They express a viewpoint that directly contradicts your own core beliefs. Your immediate, instinctive reaction is probably defensive. You want to win. You want to prove your point. You want to correct their logic and assert your dominance. That is the default programming of the human ego. Now, what happens if you pause? Instead of reacting defensively, you simply pause. You assess your feelings and your thoughts without immediate judgment. You notice the tension in your chest. You notice the spike in your pulse. You observe the urgent narrative your brain is spinning to protect itself. By recognizing your immediate emotional state and letting go of perceived notions, you cultivate an open mind. That is not a technique you download from an app. That is direct self-awareness, and it changes everything. When you practice this kind of presence, you stop needing to dominate conversations. You stop treating every interaction as a battleground where you have to defend your territory. You start to listen. And when you truly listen to another person without strategizing your rebuttal, something remarkable happens. Original insights rise naturally from deep within, without force or strain. Part 4. Trading distraction for obsession with your craft. This brings us right back to the core premise of this week's video. Why is 80% of success just fixing your mindset? Because when your mindset is clear, you stop leaking energy. Right now, think about how much mental bandwidth you lose every single day, thinking about things that do not matter. How many times do you check your phone out of pure habit? How much mental real estate do you surrender to worrying about what other people think of you? How much do you fret over news headlines you cannot control? When you clear out that social media garbage and those persistent time wasters, you suddenly find yourself with an abundance of quiet focus. You stop scattering your energy across 50 different directions. Instead, you can trade distraction for a deep, quiet obsession with your craft. Your craft might be writing, it might be painting, it might be building a business, mastering a quiet family life, or simply learning how to be more patient as a human being. Whatever it is, it requires your full, undivided attention. And you cannot give your attention to a craft if your mind is constantly being hijacked by the latest digital siren song. Fixing your mindset is not about achieving a state of permanent bliss. It's not about becoming a productivity machine. It is about clearing the weeds out of your garden so that you can finally see what is real. The gentle invitation. As we wrap up for today, I want to leave you with a very gentle thought. Do not try to overhaul your entire life by Tuesday. Remember, we are gardeners, not mechanics. Be patient with your flaws. Be gentle with your setbacks. Be honest about where you are spending your mental energy. Take a small step this week. Audit your inputs. Notice how often you reach for a distraction simply because a moment of silence feels too heavy. And when that urge arises, just stay with it for a second. Breathe, let the noise settle, and see what happens when you give your mind the one thing it has been starving for: space. Thank you for spending time with me today. If this resonated with you, hit the subscribe button and leave a quiet thought in the comments below. I look forward to seeing you right here next week as we continue our journey. Let's do it.